Assigning a prompt on Monday and grading the final paper on Friday is common practice, but this method actually tests a student's existing writing ability rather than actively teaching them how to improve. To build a lesson plan that actually supports student growth, we need a clear roadmap that breaks writing down into multiple manageable stages. This framework is called the process approach. Instead of treating writing as a straight line toward a single product, it operates as a recursive cycle. The focus remains on developing the writer's skills over several drafts. Shifting to this model solves two major problems. It prevents the frustration second language learners face when staring at a blank page, and it saves teachers from spending hours bleeding red ink over a final draft that a student will never revise. Before choosing a writing prompt, effective lesson design begins with conceptual knowledge. You have to identify your students' linguistic backgrounds and their specific, practical reasons for writing. With those needs identified, you map out 2 to 3 measurable goals. For example, a target outcome might be for the student to produce an organized paragraph containing a clear topic sentence and supporting details. These goals must then tie directly to the real-world discourse community the student is trying to enter, whether they are preparing for formal academic essays or drafting concise workplace emails. Establishing these precise outcomes early gives you the exact criteria you need to build your grading rubrics and provide targeted feedback later in the cycle. The first formal step in our template is Phase 1, pre-writing. This stage focuses entirely on building background knowledge and generating ideas. Here, you use a reading-to-write strategy. You provide model texts for your students to analyze, allowing them to see exactly how a successful argument is structured and to observe the linguistic features native to that genre. This is also the time to supply language scaffolding. You pre-teach the essential vocabulary or specific grammar structures they will rely on during the assignment. Next, you move the class into an active brainstorming exercise. A guided mind mapping or free writing session lets them gather their thoughts without the pressure of perfect sentence structure. By the end of Phase 1, your students are fully equipped. They have the vocabulary, the structural models, and the conceptual clarity required to begin drafting. That brings us to Phase 2, drafting. Whenever possible, you want to schedule drafting time during class so you can observe their process and offer immediate support. During this phase, you establish a feedback loop. You decide whether the students will exchange papers for peer review, participate in one-on-one teacher conferences, or use a combination of both. You must apply a strict content-first filter here. Explicitly instruct your class to focus strictly on organization and completely ignore spelling and grammar for the moment. Second language writers require this cognitive break. If they try to perfectly conjugate every verb while simultaneously forming a complex argument, the cognitive load becomes too high, and idea development stalls. The goal for this phase is a messy, evolving draft. You want them moving past simple knowledge telling, just listing facts, and into knowledge transforming, where they synthesize information to create a new perspective. By keeping the feedback centered strictly on content, you validate the student's logic and ideas before demanding linguistic perfection. Once the ideas are solid, we move to Phase 3. We start with the revising stage, where students reorganize their paragraphs and improve clarity based directly on the feedback they received in Phase 2. Only after the structure is locked in do we transition to the editing stage. Now the focus shifts to polishing vocabulary, fixing mechanics, and correcting surface-level errors. Review the drafts to identify patterns and deliver short mini-lessons on the most frequent mistakes, like subject-verb agreement or article usage, so students can apply the rules immediately to their own text. You cannot correct every single mistake. Prioritize your error correction by targeting the mistakes that actively block comprehension or the specific errors that are highly stigmatized in professional environments. Finally, plan for the submission of the polished draft and decide if the work will be disseminated to the rest of the class or published more broadly. Separating the revision of ideas from the editing of grammar allows students to produce higher quality work without experiencing cognitive overload. Pulling back, we can now see the complete architecture of our lesson plan mapped out across the template. We established clear outcomes, provided pre-writing support, ran a content-first drafting loop, and finished with a targeted polish. Before you assign your next writing prompt, take a few minutes to run it through this exact 3-phase logic to ensure your students have the structural support they need. Teaching this way changes your role in the classroom. You stop being a proofreader of finished products and become an active designer of student growth.